Today I want to share something that could transform how you feel about yourself. Have you ever felt like you're your own worst enemy? Like no matter what you accomplish, that critical voice in your head keeps telling you it's not enough? If you're constantly battling self-doubt and feeling like you can't truly accept yourself, I completely understand. You're definitely not alone in this struggle, and there's something incredibly important I want you to know. Many people think self-acceptance means pretending you're perfect or ignoring your flaws. But that's not what we're talking about today. What we're exploring is something much more powerful, building genuine self-worth that doesn't depend on being flawless or comparing yourself to others. The methods I'm sharing aren't just feel-good theories. They're practical techniques backed by research that can help you develop a healthier, more compassionate relationship with yourself starting right now. Let's start by understanding why so many of us struggle with self-acceptance. According to research from psychological institutions, our self-critical patterns often develop early in childhood and become deeply ingrained habits. When we're young, we learn to evaluate ourselves based on external validation, grades, approval from parents, social acceptance. Over time, this external validation system becomes internalized, and we develop what researchers call conditional self-worth. This means we only feel good about ourselves when we meet certain conditions, when we're successful, when others approve of us, when we don't make mistakes. The problem is that life is unpredictable, and we can't always control outcomes. So we end up on an emotional roller coaster, feeling good when things go well and terrible when they don't. Research shows that people with conditional self-worth are more likely to experience anxiety, depression, and chronic stress. They tend to be perfectionists who are afraid of failure, and they often procrastinate because they're worried about not meeting their own impossibly high standards. Does any of this sound familiar? There's another factor that makes self-acceptance particularly challenging in today's world, the comparison trap. Social media and our hyper-connected culture mean we're constantly exposed to other people's highlight reels. We see their successes, their perfect moments, their achievements, and we compare those to our behind-the-scenes reality, complete with struggles and imperfections. A research team studying social comparison found that this constant comparison significantly impacts our self-esteem and life satisfaction. When we're always measuring ourselves against others, we lose touch with our own values and authentic selves. We start trying to be someone we're not instead of becoming the best version of who we are. The third major obstacle to self-acceptance is negative self-talk. Most of us have an inner critic that's incredibly harsh. This voice points out every mistake, predicts failure, and constantly reminds us of our shortcomings. Research in cognitive psychology shows that this negative self-talk isn't just unpleasant, it actually impairs our performance and well-being. But here's the encouraging news. Just as these patterns were learned, they can be unlearned and replaced with healthier ones. The brain's neuroplasticity means we can literally rewire our thought patterns and emotional responses through consistent practice. Let me share some specific methods that can help you build genuine self-acceptance. The first method is daily self-compassion practice. Self-compassion isn't about being soft on yourself or making excuses. It's about treating yourself with the same kindness you'd show a good friend who was struggling. A research institution studying self-compassion found that people who practice it have lower levels of anxiety and depression, and they're more likely to bounce back from setbacks. Here's how to practice self-compassion. When you notice yourself being self-critical, maybe you made a mistake at work or said something awkward in a conversation, pause and acknowledge what's happening. Instead of getting caught up in the criticism, take a step back and observe it. You might say to yourself, I notice I'm being really hard on myself right now. Next, remind yourself that struggling and making mistakes is part of being human. You're not the only person who has ever experienced this particular challenge. This helps break the isolation that often comes with self-criticism. Place your hand on your heart or another soothing location and acknowledge that this is a difficult moment. Finally, offer yourself the same comfort and encouragement you'd give to a dear friend. What would you say to someone you care about who was in your situation? You might say something like, this is really tough, but you're doing your best. Everyone makes mistakes, and this doesn't define your worth as a person. Practice this sequence whenever you catch yourself being self-critical. At first, it might feel awkward or forced, but with repetition, it becomes more natural. Many people notice a shift in their internal dialogue within just a few days of consistent practice. The second method is value-based identity building. Instead of defining yourself by your achievements or what others think of you, you can build your identity around your core values, the principles and qualities that are most important to you. Start by identifying your personal values. These might include things like kindness, creativity, honesty, courage, justice, or humor. Take some time to really think about what matters most to you. Not what you think should matter, or what others expect to matter, but what genuinely feels important to your authentic self. Once you've identified your core values, choose one to focus on each day. Throughout the day, look for opportunities to express this value through your actions, words, and choices. If your chosen value is kindness, you might hold a door for someone, listen patiently to a colleague, or speak gently to yourself when you make a mistake. Before bed, write down at least one specific example of how you lived according to this value during the day. This practice helps you build a sense of identity that's based on your character rather than external circumstances. Even on days when things don't go perfectly, you can feel good about who you're being and how you're showing up in the world. Research from a psychological institute found that people who have a strong sense of values-based identity are more resilient in the face of challenges and have higher levels of life satisfaction. They're less affected by criticism and setbacks because their self-worth isn't dependent on specific outcomes. The third method is the accomplishment inventory. Many people struggle with self-acceptance because they focus primarily on their failures and shortcomings while overlooking their strengths and achievements. This method helps you develop a more balanced and realistic view of yourself. Each evening, spend just a few minutes writing down 3 things you accomplished that day. These don't have to be major achievements, they can be small, everyday actions that required effort or skill. Maybe you completed a challenging task at work, had a meaningful conversation with a friend, learned something new, or showed patience in a frustrating situation. Also include at least one personal quality you demonstrated. Perhaps you showed courage by speaking up in a meeting, displayed creativity in solving a problem, or exhibited perseverance by continuing to work on a difficult project. The goal is to train your brain to notice and acknowledge your positive qualities and actions. Additionally, note one challenge you faced and how you handled it. This helps you recognize your resilience and problem-solving abilities. Even if you didn't handle the situation perfectly, you can acknowledge the effort you made and what you learned from the experience. Review your entries weekly to see patterns and track your growth over time. Many people are surprised by how much they actually accomplish and how many positive qualities they demonstrate when they start paying attention. This practice helps shift your focus from what's wrong with you to what's right with you. The fourth method involves changing your relationship with perfectionism. Perfectionism often masquerades as a positive trait, but research shows it's actually linked to anxiety, depression, and decreased performance. The key is learning to distinguish between healthy striving and perfectionist thinking. Healthy striving means setting high standards while accepting that mistakes and setbacks are part of the learning process. Perfectionist thinking means believing that anything less than perfect is failure and that mistakes reflect your fundamental inadequacy as a person. When you catch yourself thinking in perfectionist terms, try reframing the situation. Instead of, I have to do this perfectly or I'm a failure, try, I want to do my best, and that's enough. Instead of, I can't believe I made that mistake, try, mistakes help me learn and improve. Focus on progress rather than perfection. Celebrate small improvements and incremental gains. Remember that mastery in any area comes through practice, which inevitably involves making mistakes and learning from them. The fifth method is developing a growth mindset about your personal development. Instead of viewing your qualities and abilities as fixed traits, recognize that you can develop and improve throughout your life. This applies not just to skills and knowledge, but to personal qualities like confidence, emotional intelligence, and resilience. When you face a challenge or setback, instead of thinking, I'm just not good at this, try, I'm still learning how to do this. Instead of, I'm not confident, try, I'm working on building my confidence. This subtle shift in language reflects a fundamental change in how you view yourself and your potential. Research from educational psychology shows that people with a growth mindset are more likely to persist through difficulties, learn from feedback, and achieve their goals over time. They're also more likely to maintain their self-esteem during challenging periods because they view struggles as opportunities for growth rather than evidence of inadequacy. The sixth method is practicing mindful self-awareness. Many of our self-critical thoughts are automatic and unconscious. By developing mindful awareness, you can observe your thoughts and feelings without immediately reacting to them or accepting them as truth. Set aside a few minutes each day for mindful observation of your thoughts. Simply notice what's going on in your mind without trying to change anything. When self-critical thoughts arise, observe them with curiosity rather than judgment. You might think, that's interesting, I'm having the thought that I'm not good enough, or, I notice my mind is focusing on what went wrong today. This practice helps you realize that you are not your thoughts. You're the observer of your thoughts, which means you have some choice in how you respond to them. Instead of automatically believing every critical thought, you can evaluate whether it's helpful or accurate. Mindfulness also helps you become more aware of your emotional patterns. You might notice that self-criticism tends to arise at certain times of day, in certain situations, or when you're feeling stressed or tired. This awareness gives you more power to interrupt the pattern and respond differently. Let me share some practical tips for implementing these methods successfully. First, start small and be consistent. It's better to practice one method for a few minutes daily than to try to do everything at once and burn out. Choose the method that resonates most with you and commit to practicing it for at least a week. Second, be patient with the process. Just as self-critical patterns took time to develop, building self-acceptance takes time too. You might not see dramatic changes immediately, but small shifts often happen sooner than you expect. Pay attention to subtle changes in how you feel about yourself and how you respond to challenges. Third, practice self-compassion about your self-compassion practice. It might sound redundant, but it's important. If you miss a day of practice or find yourself falling back into old patterns, don't use that as evidence that you're hopeless or that these methods don't work. Simply notice what happened and gently redirect yourself back to your practice. Fourth, consider sharing your journey with trusted friends or family members. Having support can make a significant difference in maintaining new habits and getting perspective when you're struggling. You don't have to go through this process alone. Finally, remember that building self-acceptance is not about becoming complacent or lowering your standards. It's about creating a foundation of self-worth that allows you to take healthy risks, learn from mistakes, and pursue your goals with confidence rather than fear. Let me summarize the key points we've covered today. First, self-acceptance means treating yourself with the same kindness you'd show a good friend. Second, building your identity around your values creates a more stable foundation than relying on achievements or others' approval. Third, regularly acknowledging your accomplishments helps balance your perspective and recognize your strengths. Fourth, replacing perfectionist thinking with a focus on progress and learning reduces anxiety and increases resilience. Fifth, adopting a growth mindset about personal development opens up possibilities for continuous improvement. Sixth, practicing mindful awareness of your thoughts gives you more choice in how you respond to self-criticism. The most important thing to remember is that you are worthy of love and acceptance exactly as you are right now, while also being capable of growth and positive change. These two truths aren't contradictory. They're both essential parts of a healthy relationship with yourself. I encourage you to choose one of these methods and start practicing it today. Even spending just a few minutes on self-compassion practice or writing down your daily accomplishments can begin to shift how you feel about yourself. Small, consistent actions create lasting transformation. If this video resonated with you, please hit the like button to help others find this content. If you want to continue building a healthier relationship with yourself, consider subscribing for more practical guidance on personal development and well-being. Remember, you deserve to feel good about who you are. Thank you for taking the time to invest in yourself today.